I've just finished off the interview that you're about to watch with Coach Hernando Planells Jr. of the Buzzsaw in the 2023 Slamball League. I say it in the episode, but it's a genuine pleasure to talk to Hernando. He's an incredibly interesting guy, and I think you should stick through the whole episode if you want to hear about his time as a coach overseas, his time as a coach at Duke University, his time as a coach in the early days of Slamball, his time coaching Channing Tatum, his time as a coach this season, and what we can expect from the Buzzsaw in 2023. Thank you for checking out Bounce Off a Slamball podcast. We hope you subscribe, we hope you like, we hope that you follow us on podcast apps and on YouTube, wherever you get it. Enjoy the show, everyone. It was a genuine pleasure. Let's get into the interview. Welcome to Bounce Off, everyone. I am joined by Coach Hernando Planells Jr. He's a former associate head coach for the Duke Blue Devils women's team. He's coached internationally, most recently for the New Zealand youth national team. He's coached in the NBA G League. He was a scout for the NBA. He's coached in Hollywood, training some actors of the highest regard to play basketball at a high level. He's an inspirational voice as a public speaker with Be Contagious. And of course, he is the former coach of the Bouncers, current coach of the Buzzsaw. How are you today, Hernando?
Man, I'm excited to be here, Sam. This is great. By the way, I should just hire you to be my PR guy. Let's travel the world and have you just introduce me. It's perfect.
You seem to do pretty well on your own PR front. I mean, you seem to have done pretty successfully at that. With that list of accomplishments already, some others we'll get into in a moment. I think you don't need any PR help.
Well, I'll take your word for it. That's fine.
Perfect. We're going to start with talking a little bit about your history in Slamball. As I mentioned in your stellar intro there, you were the coach of the Bouncers in the early years of the league. And so I want to talk a little bit about that before we talk about your other accomplishments and also what you're doing in this new 2023 season. So my first question for you is, how did you get involved in Slamball back in 2002?
Well, I mean, that's such a great question because I remember this vividly. I had returned from living in Las Vegas, actually. I was helping the men's program at UNLV with Coach Bill Bano, and came back to LA. I was working in an insurance company, and it was on this message board called SoCal Hoops about trying to find coaches for a new sport. And I submitted my name. We had an audition or tryout as a coach where we had to draw up a play. We said it was a 2-day whole immersion thing. Mm-hmm. And actually during the tryouts, I actually sprained my ankle. Jumping out of the tramp. I was not in the shape I am today. So it was like really bad. They had to tape it and everything. And we're sitting in this cold air conditioning room where like it just popped up. It was insane. But I remember I drew up the last play. It was like a double alley-oop. And I was like, you know what? I better go crazy. I better show them that I'm full of energy and everything. So I jumped in the tramp. I was jumping up and down, and afterwards, I paid for it later.
Yeah.
They called me and said, hey, we'd like to offer you the job as the coach for the Bouncers. And I did it for 3 seasons, and it was awesome. I had a great, the greatest thing about it is that when you see your former players who are now coaching, we have a bunch of them this year in this version of Slamball. So it's great seeing, the former Bouncers all over the place.
Something that I noticed quite early on looking at game footage from 2002 is that you're presented as part of the show as very much a firecracker of a coach. I think at one point commentary says he'll scream at you even when you're winning. And yeah. Looking at you now and looking at your interviews and stuff, that doesn't seem to be the energy that you bring today. Was that an accurate portrayal of your coaching style? Is that still how you coach, or have things changed in the time since?
Yeah. I was probably 23 maybe. And, back then, screamer, yeller, you think that's what coaching is. And, over the last 15, 20 years, when you dive into coaching, when you dive into the whole leadership structure, you start realizing about empowering others and getting them to a place where they don't see themselves. So, and my son's a swimmer at the University of Utah, 22. He still gets upset at me because like, Dad, you're so zen. You're so at peace now. Like, what is going on? And I'm like, well, I've meditated. I've journaled. I've done all these things to improve. And then fast forward to the very first week I had my team. After 4 days, I said, listen up, fellas, you don't understand. I've been Zen for 10 years. And the last 4 days, you have figured out a way to screw all that up. And now I'm upset. But you improve over time. And really that's what coaching is. It's empowering. And it's not about me. It's about the players, because they're the one who's got to perform every day, especially with our schedule that we're going to have.
Mm-hmm. What were some hidden challenges maybe behind the scenes or from a coaching aspect of those early seasons that we didn't get to see as an audience? I'm sure because it's a brand new sport you've never even seen before, I'm sure there were some issues in terms of understanding how to apply your coaching philosophies to this new game.
Yeah, I think back then at 23, what is a coaching philosophy? Right? You're given a team of a brand new sport that no one has played in. I didn't grow up jumping on tramps, in the backyard. So and again, at that time, I really believe yelling and screaming is what is going to get the guys to play harder. So I think that was a big challenge. I think the second other challenge was that we practiced at the time, the bouncers we practiced at, I believe, 7 or 8 o'clock in the morning. And I had to drive, me and my stopper, Rob Wilson, who was my first overall pick at that time, he was my carpool, right? Mm-hmm. So I'm carpooling with my player, who, by the way, was also a little older than me, and trying to get to a facility and practice and learn the new sport, learn the nuances of what is timing when you jump on a tramp and attack a stopper. What's a quick jump? What are all the different things that you can do, passing from the island, et cetera? So all those nuances that you're learning from the new sport, you're learning with the players, and then you're just trying them to get to play. And if I remember correctly, the first year we played all our games in 1 week, right? And so we would play them all 1 week. So training camp, practice, 1 week, boom, and then, hey, thanks so much.
Well, it means if you've had a good season, you've managed to do it all in your best week. What were, I suppose, carpooling to and from training with one of your star players? Maybe that's an advantage because you get an opportunity to talk about what's happened that day, maybe in training or in the games, and sort of assess it a little bit. Maybe you wouldn't have that if you were on your own. You've got someone to bounce off. Did that happen for you and Rob in that first season?
Absolutely, because Rob had already played 10 years overseas, was part of the Canadian national team. So he had established himself as a pro, and just listening to him and hearing what he said, he played it earlier on when the whole birth of it, but we're trying to figure it out, right? Like, for example, what's the best way to attack the tramp so you could hit the X in the middle of the tramp and then dunk the ball over people? What's the trajectory? What's the power behind it? How do you ride the tramp all the way, get there? So yeah, working with that. And then later on, we had a carpool with Dion Bailey, who Dion Bailey also played for, who's now the assistant coach for the Lava for Josh Carlson, who also played for me. So they're all over the place. So I learned a lot over the years. I've learned a lot. And even now, we practice with the mob and Brendan Kirsch, and I consider Coach Kirsch, the best coach in Slamball with his X's and O's preparation. So it just forces me to be better and think outside the box.
So that was something I was going to ask later, but since you've brought it up, and the training for Slamball, I'm assuming there's not a huge number of training facilities. You said it yourself, you were training at 7 a.m. back in the day. I'm assuming that's because everyone needs the court at some point. Right. So are you saying that training at the moment is 2 teams are training at one time just to balance out the teams and get an opportunity to get a full run in?
Yeah, we're training. So the mob and I share practice time, really from 11 to 1. But they get there for lifting, for treatment, and everything else. Then we're practicing together, and we really collaborate on what practice looks like. So, typical practice about an hour, maybe 45 minutes. We're doing team things, whether it's passing, whether it's outside lobs, whether it's attacking the tramp, and then we go into usually maybe either a scrimmage, a controlled scrimmage, where we are actively learning and not just trying to compete and get wins and losses. And then we would break into about maybe 30, 45 minutes of half court work. Now we have times where he's gone 1 hour and I've gone 1 hour. Mm-hmm. So we have the full court, but really it's maximizing. I think the best coaches, the best teams are going to learn how to maximize that amount of time to get the maximum amount of reps to get them going.
Is it hard holding back some of your coaching strategies at the moment so that the mob aren't seeing maybe the strategies that you want to employ in the games and having to hold some stuff back till closer to the season? Or is it very much collaborative at this stage because you all just want the league to succeed?
Well, it's definitely the latter. Right? We want to collaborate, we want to work. And, Brendan and I, we've been friends for years. And we even talked about, listen, there are no secrets, right? You're either attacking from the top sides, you're either having a passer on the island, you're throwing it off the plexiglass, and then you have a stopper. Mm-hmm. Right now, Coach Kirsch does run multiple cutters back and forth, and he gets his guys to jump around the tramps, which is great. But the reality is is that once you enter the slam zone, defense is very little because you can't touch the person going through it. So now it just becomes that one-on-one stopper. So the creativity to draw in the stopper and the dish or make a lob here and there, it's all about timing. So how do you disrupt timing? How do you take a look at what they do? What are the tendencies? So we really don't hold back in terms of what we do. And the learning process of the players is huge as well too. Sometimes we can't move as quickly, or sometimes we have to slow down. You know, it's all those things that we put in account, but we're very much collaborative. We have one practice plan and we go from there.
We'll talk more about the upcoming season later on, but I've got one last series of questions about your history with Slamball. When the league moved to China, you didn't go with it. Was there a reason why didn't you go? Did you have other opportunities, or did you just not feel like that was the right move for your career at the time?
It was really more, I got into mainstream coaching. By then I think I don't know if I was coaching the G League or I was in Japan at that time. I don't remember really because of the different years. And then because I was I was coaching basketball, it just wasn't the right time for me to be gone for 5, 6, 8 weeks, however long it was.
Did you keep up to date with how the league was progressing and what was going on over there, or were you solely focused on your duties back in the States?
I did. I just honestly didn't know if it was going to come back or not. Right? I mean, I have to tell you, when I got the phone call that Slamball is coming back, this is honest truth. Get a phone call, Hernando, hey, you know, Slamball's coming back. You know, are you free? Are you interested? And I said, you know, you're like a girlfriend who I haven't spoken to in like 18 years. And you're calling me and saying, hey, what are you doing? You know, it's like, I was like, gosh, it doesn't die, which is great. I was like, absolutely.
Is that how you reply to the girlfriends as well?
Yeah, like, yes, you know, but you know, so having that and then being back with the guys and seeing them as men of their own, they have kids of their own is a big part of coaching. Coaching is, yes, getting your guys to be great, but the camaraderie you have with your former players and staff, and I have Sandy Fletcher who played for him. He's my coordinator. He's awesome. You know, having that back is really the big part of coaching that I think I miss as an individual.
Okay. We'll get into your coaching outside of Slamball just now then. Where did your love for basketball come from first off? What got you into this sport, and what made you decide that coaching was the avenue you wanted to go down?
Well, I played a lot of sports growing up. I wasn't very good at any of them, but I played a lot of them. And then really, honestly, I got into coaching because I thought it was kind of cool. You know, I wanted to walking down the sidelines. I wanted to wear a suit. I wanted to tell people what to do. And that was my early part of coaching. And that's because I was coached that way. And, you know, when you're younger, there's a different type of coaching. And so I just fell in love with the coaching aspect of it. Basketball was just the best avenue for me to express it. And I love the game. I love the free flowingness of it. And that's how I stuck with it over all these years.
When you were coaching at Duke, what was the basketball culture like? Because obviously it's this mythological place to some basketball fans in terms of its attitude towards the sport. What was it like being a part of that machine?
Well, I think a lot of times, obviously, when you talk about Duke basketball, you talk about Coach K and Duke men's basketball. And I was around all those guys, you know, watching Zion Williamson, Austin Rivers, the Plumlee brothers, Coach K and John Shire, and all those guys, you know, how they built their program and how they've kept this brotherhood was like just a masterclass in itself. The other part, though, too, is, you know, our women's program was really good. The 7 years I was there, we reached Elite Eight twice. We won the ACC. I recruited, coached, and helped develop 12 WNBA players who were all drafted. You know, like, so those, and we were great. And we were on TV. We were all these things. So it gave me firsthand experience on continuing to work with high-level players, but then also be in touch with your fans and also allow me to learn more budgeting. It allowed me to learn social media, how to, you know, I edit all my videos usually. I mean, and, you know, like those type of things, you build so many skills because, you know, your head coach allows you to. But it was a great time. It was a huge blessing. It was one of those things where you never think you're ever going to coach. I grew up in LA. Never thought I'd ever be at Duke University. And I'll be at times at practice just staring at all the banners at Cameron Indoor Stadium. And my coach is like, hey, H, are you here? Wake up. I'm like, oh, sorry, coach. You know, like those things are with it. So it was a great 7-8 years run that I had there. I'm still very close with a lot of people there in the administration, and I still watch them to this day.
Wonderful. According to Wikipedia, now this might be wildly incorrect, so you can tell me if it is or isn't. And this is the only time you'll hear me say that during this interview, but that's the place I found this, and they didn't have supporting evidence. But if it's true, it's interesting. I want to ask you about it. When you were hired in 2005 as the head coach of the Wyoming Golden Eagles, you were the youngest professional basketball coach in the United States.
Yes.
So that's true. That's accurate.
That is true. That is true.
So were you aware of that when that happened? Were you told, congratulations, you're in charge of this team. By the way, you're the youngest person to do this?
No, I was pretty egotistical back then. So I probably looked it up myself.
Right.
And was like, what are the other coaches in different pro leagues and everything else? And yeah, that was a little known fact. The funny part is that the league was then folded like right before the season started. So I coached like a 2-week summer league. But yes, during that time, I was the youngest head professional basketball coach in the country.
For 2 weeks, and then sadly it was cut.
For about 2 weeks. It's fine.
Not your fault. Not your fault. Nothing you did. Outside of coaching, you've mentioned you did scouting for Duke, but you also did scouting for the NBA. When you were doing scouting for the NBA, what were your personal responsibilities in that role?
Yeah, so I worked for Marty Blake, who's the director of scouting of NBA, longtime NBA executive. Passed away about, 6 or 7 years ago. But really, I did it so I get my foot in the door. My biggest dream was to work in the NBA. And so I'd go, they'd give me about 10 to 20 games a year. Where I'd go and watch different prospects at different levels of colleges. And then I'd probably go watch another 30 or 40 games myself. I'd get the press pass, sit right on press row, shake hands with NBA GMs and send them emails and everything else. And it is one of those steps that I needed to do to get in. It's not like my dad playing the NBA or have a long lineage, of family that's been in the NBA. So like, what can I do to separate myself from others? And so I wrote scouting reports. I was on the phone. I'd cold call NBA head coaches in the middle of the night when they had dial by name directory. I just type in their name. Only 2 head coaches call me back, and that's fine. I don't hold any grudges. But, so it was that time to go and find young talent who could be eligible for the NBA draft or summer league.
What were the things you were looking at for potential NBA players? What was I don't want to say it factor because that seems slightly like a boring phrase, but what were the key things that if you saw it in someone, you're like, that's someone I need to look at again later?
Length was a big thing. I mean, length is now the key of everything, but a perfect example would be Avery Bradley, who I had with the Maine Red Claws / Celtics. And Avery Bradley was 6'1", played at Texas freshman year. But what made him unique is he had, if I believe, a 6'9" wingspan. Right. So here he is. He averaged, I think, 10, 11 points per game his freshman year. But he gets drafted, I think, 17th or 19th in the first round. Meanwhile, a lot of players who were first-team All-American was not even drafted. So Avery Bradley gets drafted simply because of his length. So we're looking at length. And then from there, what is the athletic ability ceiling for the individual? And then the skill. During that time, the skills weren't as sharp as they are today. I think a lot of people complain about the NBA today, but today it's better than ever. They're athletic, they're long, they're skilled, they can shoot. I mean, what do you want from these guys? They're amazing athletes, right?
I think some people want punches thrown, it tends to be.
They want punches, and then I hear this all the time, like, oh, the mid-range game is gone. Basketball's not pure anymore. I'm like, really? Is it that exciting when you hit a mid-range jump shot? I mean, I could hit a mid-range jump shot, but come on.
I'll say that to me in Slamball, the mid-range shot is the most exciting part of the game because the ability to hit a shot from the trampoline is, I don't know how they do it, and seeing that is incredible.
You're fired. Can't do it, man. Nope. No, but I respect that because you know what? We were working on that today in practice, the timing of it, because now, and James Willis and Mason Gordon were 2 of the best at it. They would jump up, be at the apex, and then on their way down, they're watching the stopper, and then they release it, and it goes in. And of course, as a coach, you're just saying, like, are you kidding me? How did this happen? How did you not get that damn ball? But it is a tough shot.
It's just really impressive. On that, what are some key things you look for in slam ball players in terms of, is it the same thing? Is it length? Is it fundamental skill ability? Or are there other things that jump out to you more when you're coaching for this sport or even recruiting for this sport? I don't know if you've been involved in that for slam ball in the new generation.
Well, I think that's ever changing because, my team, I primarily have basketball and football players on there. And then when you have them, you realize what are some things that they need to do to become slam ball players, such as there is no help side defense. There's no one sitting in help side, bumping cutters or anything, because the slam zone is right there. When the mob was really good, they had 3 or 4 football players. When the rumble was good, they had guys who were really, really tall. So I don't know really what is the perfect slam ball player. Now, one would argue, it's a guy who can play both basketball and football. Sandy Fletcher, who played for me, is now my coordinator. He played football and basketball at USC, one of the top programs in the country, won a national championship with Pete Carroll. And he was a great slam ball player. And I would probably consider his ability to be the best hybrid. But how many guys are there like that, right? So then you're depending on you how to coach them up to be a perfect or close to perfect slam ball player.
And were you involved in recruiting for this new season, or have you just been brought in purely for coaching purposes?
I mean, a little bit. I got the word out and sent some players over, and then Rob looked them over and if he approved them or not.
Okay, perfect. We'll move on to your non-coaching, non-basketball league stuff very quickly. In terms of YouTube, your new YouTube series, Paano to Pinoy, dropped today, episode 1, the day that we're recording this. Was that something? It's all about informing your children on their Filipino heritage a little bit better and giving them challenges and tasks that explore that so that they can learn more. You're doing that with My Ex Global. Was that something you'd approach them about, or did they talk to you about it? How did that relationship come about?
Yeah, so I used to coach in the Philippines, and I've gone back and forth. I have a lot of family there, and I happen to know one of the producers, a guy named TJ Monotok. His brother was actually my agent when I was in the Philippines. He had this show idea to do basically the same concept, but do it one Filipino American kid on the East Coast, one Filipino American kid on the West Coast. And he's looking for different people. And all of a sudden he came across one of my TikToks when I'm dancing with my kids or whatever. And he had this idea, like, you know what, wait a second, let me talk to Hernando and see if he would be interested. So he called me, we talked about it. I said, this would be great. Let me talk to my kids. Then we had to get approved by the people in the Philippines. And luckily my kids said yes. And, as a dad, my son's 22, my daughter's 20. Anytime you could do something with your kids as they get older, it's a huge gift. So we filmed 3 episodes. They're being released today. The first one released, next week released. And yeah, it's teaching them their Philippine heritage through a variety of games and activities and really cooking, since I love cooking.
Yeah.
So no, it's awesome. It's a great thing. I think it's going to continue to expand. And I think the network is going to hopefully extend us.
Wonderful. The first thing that came to mind when I saw that you were doing the show, the first question I wanted to ask you was, how important is family to you personally?
Yeah, so family's huge. I grew up in LA. My father is Spanish and Colombian. My mom's from the Philippines. I'm one of 10 children my mom had. 8 were in the Philippines, and just me and my younger sister here. So it's huge. And I had kids when I was young. But then I also 10 years ago got divorced, and my ex-wife moved back to LA. I was coaching at Duke, so I had to learn how to be a parent 30,000 miles away, which I wouldn't recommend to anybody. But the plus side of that is that it taught me how to be a more present dad. It taught me how to communicate better. It taught me that just because I'm your dad, that doesn't hold a whole lot of water. Right? It's your actions. It's what you do. It's what you say. And so doing this with my kids was the best thing I've ever done in my life, whether we only have 3 episodes or we go on to have 10. I told my team today, about it. And I said, if you guys don't mind sharing. And I got really emotional over it, just because it means so much to me. My kids mean so much to me. And everywhere I've been, I think family is a huge part. So every team I've had, every player, including my kids and everybody, is what life is about.
Wonderful. And that answered my follow-up question, which was, how does family, and even what you're talking about, that experience with the show, how does that fit into your basketball philosophy? But it sounds just you bring it to every training session.
You have to, right? Because you've been entrusted with someone else's, at the end of the day, you've been entrusted with someone else's kid. You've been entrusted with someone else's faith, and in many ways their life. So how can you better it? And it gets tough in coaching and complicated because you're trying to help them get to where they want to be. But the reality is you also have to have wins and losses accumulated with that as well, too. So it's that fine line of balancing or blending the two. And family's important. Like it's if you don't have family, then what do you have? And family doesn't mean the traditional, my mom used to say all the time when she was upset at me, she goes, "Mijo, blood is thicker than water." And I agree. Totally agree with it. Totally agree with it. But there's enough love in this world to share and include other family members into your own family as well, too.
Of course. Moving away from the YouTube side of things, I mentioned earlier you're a basketball coach to the stars as well as to basketball players. The three movies that jump out at me: basketball coordinator on Coach Carter, on Semi-Pro, Spider-Man 3. Was the opportunity to be part of Coach Carter, did that come about because of your relationship with the real life man, or does that just separate? You just saw each other on set?
Well, it came with my relationship with the head coach, the first head coach of the Diablos, which was Mark Ellis. And Mark Ellis was a sports coordinator for a bunch of football film. So he called me, and because I need a basketball guy, it ended up being Coach Carter was the first one. And then, I did Semi-Pro. I've done 3 movies with Adam Sandler. There's a show right now called Swagger on Apple TV. Rise, the movie about Giannis Antetokounmpo's life, that's on Disney Plus, and crossover. So it's a lot of different things. That's what I do primarily now, besides leadership talks and now Slamball Coach. I go and I help bring sports to reality, and I do it with a company called Game Changing Films, which is, there's so many Slamball connections because it was Mark Ellis, head coach Diablos, and then Amy McDaniel was also on staff on Slamball when it first came out. And so I kept in touch with her, and then maybe 6-7 years later, she started her own company called Game Changing Films with another friend of ours, Jesse. And for some reason, they still call me when there's projects, and I'm forever grateful for them. So I've known Amy now 20 something years, and just continue to work on different production work. So I do that. And I work on commercial as well too. But the reality is how do you make it look as real as possible? And over time, I've done primarily basketball programming, but now I do all the different sports and help out whenever I can.
So is that your responsibility there, is just teaching people the fundamental skills, or is it also advising on sort of where to shoot certain scenes from to make it look as real as possible?
It's all of the above. Usually you're hired as someone to train the actors or bring the choreography to life.
Right.
What ends up happening, though, is that everyone wants to film basketball in a ESPN, NBA-like type manner. But you want to get into the action. So, for example, on Swagger, we had a guy named John Like who was a rollerblader. And he's a cameraman who happens to be a really, really good X Games rollerblader type guy. So he's bobbing and weaving through all that stuff. And so working with him on where to put the players and keep people safe, and working with the director of photography on possibilities of where they could shoot. And it's just like being an assistant coach. You give suggestions, however they like it, whatever they do, they may say no. And some directors want you fully involved, and some directors don't want you involved. So you just have to feel it out and give your 2 cents. And if they say great, amazing. If they say nah, stay in your lane, great, no problem. I'm right here if you need me.
Okay. You mentioned you worked on 3 different Adam Sandler movies. Immediate question is, as a coach, what's your take on his basketball ability? Because he's become this, like, the poster boy for celebrities you didn't know were good at basketball. And then people go, is he really that good? And I want your opinion as a coach.
Well, okay. So he's good in the world of celebrities.
Right.
And the world of pickup basketball at any gym. His bank shot is for real unbelievable. From anywhere on the side. Like, it is, I'm like, you've got to be kidding me. Like, he just shoots that ball, bank shot. And in one of the films, I was actually just his basketball workout buddy.
Right.
So I'd set up basketball games, and we'd have people like Vanilla Ice come and play, and Todd Bridges, and all these other guys, Andy Samberg, and all these guys. And but really, and we played every day. And so he got better, but he just has he really is a tremendous passer. All those little no-look passes you see on little clips, he can do all those things. I would play, and then oh gosh, was it Warner Brothers or Sony Studios? Wherever his office is, they had a basketball court,
Right.
and it was called Happy Madison Square Garden, right? So take off Madison Square Garden, Happy Madison Adams company, and it would be right there. And every day from 12 to 2, there'd be pickup games, and Adam and I would go play. And he'd be the guard. He'd throw a bunch of passes I could not catch because I had no idea how he saw me. And then I would feed him little bank shots and everything else. So it was he can play. He can really play.
On the opposite end of the spectrum, my long-held belief since the first time I watched Coach Carter till the most recent time is that Channing Tatum is a horrible basketball player. Is that accurate or no? Because I never saw him dribble. I never saw him shoot in the whole film.
I will tell you, Channing Tatum is a tremendous model and actor. and a tremendous human. I'd say this Channing, when he showed up, he really wanted the part so bad. And he did everything he could to be a part of it. He worked really hard. But, sometimes we don't have a whole lot of time to film, and we got to make him look good. So I remember his only bucket, I think, was a putback layup or him cutting, and he finished it. And I remember because he's like, Coach HAC, man, give me some more shots. Give me some more shots. I said, hold on, I got to talk to the writer. I don't know if that's what they want, because we're also on a time budget. I think what people don't understand, when they watch a film, they watch maybe 2 to 5 minutes of basketball action in one game. That's probably 2 to 3 days of filming, because you could probably finish 6 plays, about 4 to 6 plays each day, because of the different camera angles. Then you have to pick up dialogue. Then you have to pick up all the different pieces of everything else. And then you're left with like, oh, shoot, we got to finish filming this stuff. So there's a lot of things that go involved with it. And some of the job is to keep it moving.
Yeah. And so you can't stop for the slowest developing player. You have to just go.
We got to go.
Come on. I remember watching it and thinking, wow, I've not seen him do anything in the game. And then at the end of one of the matches, he's got the ball and they've won, and he just throws it in there. I'm like, that's the first time I've seen the ball leave your hands, Channing Tatum. So yeah, I'm glad I've been proven right. That's all I needed. Thank you.
And Channing, if you ever watch or hear this, I love you.
That's the important part. Moving on to the 2023 Slamball season, how do you feel taking over a new team when other former coaches are taking over legacy teams like Carter with the Rumble, Hirsch with the Mob, but you've got a brand new franchise to deal with?
Yeah, I don't know how I feel about it. I do know, and I joke around when we came to training camp. I said, listen, I just want to let everybody know that I'm the only non-winning championship coach that is here. That's all I want everybody to know. So no, I mean, I love the Bouncers. First of all, I just love the color orange in general. So I was a little disappointed in it. But the Buzzsaw have orange in it. And I think egotistically wise, like it kind of hurt. But when I could go to training camp and I see 8 or 9 former Bouncers, they're all coaching, you know what? It really doesn't matter. We're the head coach of the Buzzsaw. It's going to be great. I've got a great group of guys. I still show them all bouncer footage of Chris Young and James Lee and all those, Ronnie Bond, Rob Wilson, all those guys. And it's a new team, new opportunity, and you just take over it and see if we can win the championship.
How does the league structure now compared to 2002, 2003, or even 2008 when you were last there? Has there been like so many technological improvements, and how is the structure of the whole league different? I mean, we're talking today, you were part of a big meeting organizing different things. Is it far more structured than it was back in the day?
Yeah, it's more structured. I think the hardest part of a new sport is getting the refereeing right. And I think that's every coach's worry. But we got great referees, and they're in there every day. They're working hard, and they're learning the game as well, too. So I think that's one part. They're very, very organized with that. Not to say they weren't organized with that before, but I think there's a bigger emphasis on it and the importance of it. The court is wider than the old Slamball court. And also, I think the advances it's a different breed of athletes. We've got guys who have played all different sports at high levels, and which is different than the other guys we had before. We had guys who were tough, gritty guys. Like Chris Young was not even drafted. Ghetto Bird was not even drafted. And I was just watching a game the other day. He had 19 points in the first half, and our team had 19 points. It's horrible coaching, number one, by me. Number two, great that Chris Young scored all those points.
Is it Chris had the league, the highest score in league history for a while? Was he the one that had 40 points in the game?
Yeah. Listen, I just want to tell you, we're not going to really get into how horrible Slamball coach I am, but I've had Chris Young, Rob Wilson. I had Mason Gordon. I had Josh Carlson. I had Dion Bailey, James Lee, Martise Moore. I mean, I've had tremendous guys. The hardest part, though, honestly, is the injuries that would happen over the course. And Slamball is taxing. You got to be tougher than nails to get up there every single day, jump on a trap, attack a stopper, and score. And then you got to come around and play defense. So it's a tough sport. But all those guys made me better.
You mentioned injuries just there. Who is on your squad that's currently injured? Because I saw you post a photo on Instagram the other day and someone was in a cast.
Yeah, so Ray was my 8th round pick, although I thought he was a 3rd or 4th round pick in general. He played football at Tulsa and Oklahoma State. My stopper, Taekwondo, my 2nd overall pick, has been battling sort of like a nagging IT band. Right. So I said, listen, you got to stretch. Like, that's it. Just stretch. So we'll get him back. And just little nicks and knacks here and there with everything else. But as long as I say, as long as we're ready to go on game 1 and we can see continual improvement, because it is a many game season that's not that long, then I think we could really be in the hunt.
What was it about Taekwondo Scott that made you take him 2nd overall out of everyone in the draft pool?
Well, he showed a lot of promise as a stopper. And I think as a stopper, you have to say, I want to play stopper. Like, it's a mindset. The reality is you're going to get attacked 30, 40, 50 times. And they're coming right at you. So how are you going to get up, throw the ball outlet, even attack sometimes? Like, how are you going to do it? So I saw a lot of potential in him. And, I drafted Rob Wilson, the first pick, way back in Slamball season 1. He was a great stop with us. And, the whole argument is like, well, you need a gunner because how you win is through scoring. It's not really through defense. And I get that point, but you may have one good gunner, and if I have one good stopper, and if I make one stop, all I have to do is win by 1 point. That's all I have to do. So, yeah, I could have gone gunner. I could have gone stopper. I went with stopper. I have full faith in Taekwondo, what he could do, and his leadership to our team.
So you mentioned as well there, you're talking about, you said Roy was the gentleman who was injured, who you said you took in the 8th round?
Yeah,
Ray. Yeah. Slamball site, throughout the whole process of bringing the league back, it was constantly said it's a 64-man draft, 64 players, teams of 8. The draft on the site only has 7 rounds, and every squad only has 7 players.
Right.
Where's this mythical 8th round? When will we find out what happened?
There is no mythical 8th round.
Right. Okay.
I think what ended up happening is like, all right, what can we do? I think we're going to go with 7 players.
Right.
So that's how the draft went. I think, all the time and I think this is where leagues make a mistake. They make an announcement, and then now that they make the announcement, they don't believe they could pivot. And I think how we pivoted to have 7 rounds worked out perfectly, because ultimately we need the league to go. So 7 players is sort of, I think, the sweet spot where we were looking at. And we got 7 really good players on every team.
In terms of your draft process, through the first 3 rounds of the draft, you took one of each position. You took a stopper, handler, and a gunner. And in the 4th round, you took a 2nd gunner. So you filled out a traditional Slamball starting 4 of a stopper, a handler, and 2 gunners. Was that your intention, to try and fill out those 4 positions as fast as possible? Or was it just luck that the best players available played those positions?
Well, so the way the draft was set up, first of all, we had this magnificent draft board. I got to send you a picture. I had magnets, I had pictures. Listen, this was my NBA draft. That's all I'm saying. It was my Slamball draft. It was so great that I had other coaches looking over into our draft board to see who was available. But that's okay. We're on the cutting edge here with the Buzzsaw. Anyways, that's the point.
Great. What a great line, by the way. Is that the team slogan?
It better be. I mean, we're going to brand that now. But the way the draft works is, since Lava had first pick, I had the 2nd pick, and I think it's called a snake draft. if I remember. So that means I don't draft again till 15 or 16, whatever it was. So now, I'm looking who are other teams taking, and we felt in that slot, Michael was going to be the best player. And I liked Michael because of his experience, but I liked him because he can play both handler and gunner. And then drafting Jamal Barnes after that, who I happen to coach his dad as well too, and with the Bouncers with Sandy Fletcher in that season 3. And he was just tenacious and he could just attack the rim and had this fire personality. And I felt like that was the best way to do it. I really felt really good about our draft. And as the draft goes later and later, you're taking chances on guys who like, all right, this guy's longer, this guy's built really well, he looks strong. And I felt like we had a really, really good draft of guys who were solid people and players, but that could also improve over time. They hadn't reached their ceiling yet, which in my opinion makes them more hungry so that they'd want to get better every single day. A finished product right from day 1 or day 7 for me is not where I want us to be. I need for us to be peaking, not even that first week, that's 3rd, 4th, 5th game, and that really heart of it would be really great for us.
You said improving over time was a key. Is this looking too far ahead for you, or are you talking about both this season and hopefully next season? I know the ESPN deal is for 2 years. Are you sort of looking at who you think could be developed so that in 2 years they're even better than they are now, or are you just worried about 2023?
I'm just worried about 2023. And because here's the thing. And I joke around with this all the time, but it's so true. The ESPN contract is with Slamball. The ESPN contract is not with Coach Hernando or the Buzzsaw. And it's a great way to remind the players, like, this is why we have to be hungry every time. We have to believe that someone, and there are many people who want my job and want the player's job. So we have to be hungry in that way. So we want to focus on the now. And then after the season, hopefully, everything goes our way. We're sitting at the top. It's amazing. And then when the next season comes, we'll have to make some tougher decisions. We'll have to see what slots are open. Will there be expansion teams? Will there not? Who do we keep? Who do we not keep? Who goes to free agency, et cetera. So really just focusing on the now and how could I get better? I mean, even, we all practice in the same facility. I don't watch any other team because if I watch another team, it's going to mess me up. Right. Then I'm like, oh my gosh, look what they're doing. Look what I can't have that stress. So I'm going to go just focus on now.
Okay. You mentioned Jamal Barnes Jr., who was your 3rd round pick. I'm very high on him just from the research I've done. But you also took Devontae Pratt in the 5th round, and we've talked about Ray Taylor, who came in the 7th round. You've taken 3 handlers out of 7 draft picks. Are you going to go handler heavy this season, or is that just that those were the best players available?
Later on, we just took the best players available, and because Michael can play gunner, hopefully getting Pratt some minutes at that handler, or even Ray for that matter, working that. And the other part of it is that we're going to sub every 2 minutes, every minute after 2 minutes, to keep their air up and everything else, because Slamball's tiring. So has
that been a concern so far with bringing these guys in, or even the ones who have come straight out of college or come straight out of like a pro league? Are they finding the conditioning's different?
It's just different in general. Like we're asking you to run on a gymnastics floor or a spring bed floor, then jump on a tramp, then get on some padding, and then jump off, and then hit a plexiglass, then play defense, then jump at the stopper, then stop the ball. It's unlike any sport whatsoever, right? So I watch a lot of Australian rules football and hockey and rugby because I get ideas substitution-wise. I also get ideas coaching-wise from a free-flowing perspective. I'm a coach who runs very, very few plays. We want to have a style of play and teach them how to play so that it's harder to scout. And hopefully I do a good enough job where they understand the different layers of what we're trying to do offensively and defensively so that there is learning experience and movement over time.
Is there anyone from your squad this season that we've not talked about yet that you're really high on and you want to talk about in this moment?
I'm high on every single one of my guys, honestly.
Right.
Like I have to say, like I because of the way we play and the way that they've come together as a team, I'll tell you how great my team is. My team have their own team meetings. I'm usually a big film guy. I watch film with my guy maybe once or twice a week, and they watch film all together and then send me the notes of what they either send me or we talk about the next day or what they see or what they're not seeing. Right. So their dedication is there. I always joke around with my team. I say, you guys are the most obedient team ever. But here's the thing. Obedient people get only so far in life. So what are we going to do to expand our creativity, expand our teamwork and playing off of each other so that we can do special things as time goes on?
So you're coaching disobedience, which is a fantastic thing to hear.
I mean, you said it, not me. I should have a t-shirt now that says disobedience every time we just walk around.
That's great. Or just obedience with dis graffitied on. We'll workshop it later.
Yes.
You said you're not paying attention to the other teams purposefully, but are there any players that you've seen maybe pre-draft that you're particularly concerned about from the rest of the league?
Well, I think the first overall pick from the Lava, Bryce
Moraine. I'm sure that's a good way to get under his skin.
Yeah, great. It's gonna be all over. You know what Coach Hernando called you? Minaj. He's dangerous. Tony, I don't remember his last name. He's on the slashers, dangerous as well too. I think all the mob players, since I see him every single day, are all dangerous, no matter what Coach Kirsch says. Don't believe him. Yeah, but that's it. I honestly, like, as I've gone older as coaching, if we focus on ourselves and we perfect what we are doing, then whoever we play against shouldn't pose a huge challenge. They'll pose a problem, but not a huge challenge if we're able to be coachable and adjust on the fly.
Okay. We talked earlier about Sandy Fletcher as your assistant coach, your coordinator. Why did you choose him to support you in this role? Or was it a case of the league sort of said, this is who we've got, we want you to work with them?
Well, there was a pool of candidates, and then, they'll ask your opinion, who would you like to work with? And I said, honestly, I'll work with any bouncer because they know what I want to do. But during training camp, Sandy and I would always talk all the time. He would take a look at guys. Sandy would be a tremendous GM for any squad because he gets along with the players. He kind of I don't know if this is the word, but slithers around, talks to everybody. All of a sudden I'm getting injury reports from guys I didn't even know were injured. I'm just hearing all these things, and it comes from Sandy. But what I really love about as well too is that the way he teaches the game in terms from a defensive standpoint on contact, on moving your feet, on having that kind of football mentality is big for our guys. I mean, the first time Sandy put his hands on a guy, teach him how to just move their feet and everything. One guy was like, whoa, you're physical, but it's that type of it. And we kind of play off of each other really well. I'm kind of even keel and calm a little bit, even though he tells me all the time, he goes, Coach, you got to rip their heads off. You got to cuss them out. I'm like, no, not yet. We got to meditate, breathe. We do all these things. And so it's a really, really good mix. He lifts weights with them while I'm preparing practice. He checks on them all the time. He does a really, really great job with it. And I'm super, super happy that he's with us.
Wonderful. You said, what's a major change in basketball culture in the US in the last 15 years? Just because that's where your experience lies. What's a major change culturally within basketball in the US in the last 15 years that you think is going to be present in slam ball and changes the way that it's played today?
Well, I think that, the me culture, it's all about myself. And that's what coaches have been and fans have been battling. Oh, I missed the team basketball. Everybody throws 55 passes before they score, blah, blah, blah. Right? I think that's just a natural progression of life. In every society, it becomes about me, 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 me. Right? So it just that's the way it is. So I think when it comes to Slamball, of course, everyone's looking for the dunks. Everyone's looking for the high flying action, the blocks, but who's going to get, the loose ball rebounds? I mean, this year we'll have a loose ball rebound, an award after every game. And really, I should call it the Josh Carlson Award, because if you watch Josh Carlson season 3, he is bobbing and weaving and diving and doing all the different things. That's illegal, by the way, now, but that's besides the point. He did it back then for me, which was amazing. But those little things are huge. And how do you get a team to come together as a team where culturally they may not know what that means, what a team looks like 20 years ago. So my job as a coach is to figure out, okay, what does a team definition look like in 2023? And then how do I apply it to their psyche and who they are now? So it's combining the old ways of teamwork into new. But ultimately, I tell them today, and I tell them for our first team meeting, if I have to pull you guys, we're going to be in trouble. You guys are going to have to pull. You guys are going to have to push. I'm just here to guide you in a direction. That's what the great coaches do. And I'm not saying I'm a great coach at all. That's just how my coaching style is. And that's what I really, really believe. I'm here to guide you in that direction. You've got to accomplish it. You've got to execute it. All those things that we practice. And hopefully I pushed enough buttons to get them there.
Well, I think if 70% of coaches in the league played for you at some point, we can call you the Greg Popovich of Slamball. So I just take that.
Well, I mean, listen, you said it. I did. You said it, and I'm all for it.
I'm still trying to get that job as hype man.
Yeah. Yes, absolutely.
Something you've said in interviews in the past is that culture for a team comes from the coaching staff, but also comes from the players. It's a joint thing. In your short time with the Buzzsaw, have you been able to establish a culture, or is it still progressing as we go towards the season?
Well, I have to say this has been the quickest a culture has been brought together. We had our very first team meeting. I had a board. I said, these are the things that we're trying to get done. And that means we're going to have to get along. That means you have to figure out your own house, meaning you have to figure out where you are as a person so that you could understand who you are and now the projection of your teammates. And now how does that look like? That means you have to have open conversations. You may not like it. The other part is also then you have to pull your teammate up and with you to go train and be better. And how does that look like? So we went through the different things, but ultimately I said, listen, all of you are men and you all either have kids or you have nieces and nephews. At the end of the day, you need to behave and run this team as you would when you talk to your kids or your family. How would you want them to do it? So now, and then you have to follow that. So for the most part, they've been tremendous. They've been late one time, and I was not happy about it. I got on them. I said, listen, you guys are pros. Next time you're late, I'm just going to take money out of your pocketbook because I can make you run. I could do have you do bear crawl. I'm not doing any of that stuff. You're wasting our practice time. So I'm just going to fine you. They're like, oh, next day, they're all on the court, ready to go. Ever since then, they've been fine. So they do a really good job leading. And because we don't have as many team meetings as well, too, they, in many ways, police themselves. But I also believe that's a big part of our draft process. What Coach Fletcher did in vetting some of these guys and talking to these guys and then reporting to me. And then when I talk to them as well, too, it matched. And again, we've got great guys. Just got to find a way to translate that to wins. That's it.
It's all going to come this season. My last question for you is that ultimately, what made you decide to come back to Slamball?
Great question. I think as I mentioned earlier, for a time, the NBA is where I wanted to be. Like I wanted to be a coach or GM or something. I would go to Las Vegas Summer League. I'd sit with GMs, picking their brain. I'd call them all these different things. And when you're younger, when those situations doesn't happen, you wonder what went wrong, and you start questioning the direction that God put you in your life. And now that I'm older, this is where I want to be. Right? I honestly, about 3 years ago, no, maybe 3 or 4 years ago, after everything ended at Duke, I said to myself, I want to move to Hawaii. So what did I do? I bought myself a ukulele and I started listening to Hawaiian reggae music because I was like, I was going to move to Hawaii. Now I didn't move to Hawaii. I moved closer. I went back to California. Okay, fine. But then I started saying, like, what do I want in my life? Well, I want whatever freedom I have to spend time with my kids, even though they're old. So that was one part. The other part is like, I wanted to coach, but I wanted to coach in something that was really special and be something at a high level. And I wanted to speak and work on film. Well, all those things started happening because that's what I put my energy toward. And then Slamball came around and it gave me another opportunity to do something that I loved way back then, brought back a lot of different memories. But then that became like my NBA, from how I evaluated, from how I did the draft board, to how Sandy and I put it all together, to how we run practice, to how we communicate with our guys, to different quotes we send every morning, to different articles, to all these different things. It's how I really wanted to run it. And now I am where I want to be. And one final thing, I talk way too much, but I was an NAIA coach 3 years ago. I won Coach of the Year, won the conference championship, all this amazing stuff. And at the end of the year, I was like, oh, look at all these trophies. This is amazing. Yay. Now what? Right? Like where does it go? Like that, the ego part was filled, even though it shouldn't have been filled that way, but it did. And now I get to coach where I'm no longer saying that winning is everything. As I mentioned, having all these bouncers around here is amazing. I get to see them, connect them. And I'm having this new group of Buzzsaw players who are buying into what we're doing. How that translates to wins and losses, I don't know, but I'm excited about the process and where we're headed with that.
Wonderful. And then all that's left is to win a championship at the end of the season.
That's it. That's it.
Culture's nice, but championship's the cherry on top.
Got to do it, and then I can write a book. Listen, it's all a marketing ploy. We're all on our way.
And I'll be part of the PR team. Thank you very much.
You, my friend, not part of it. You are head.
Oh, no. Thank you so much, Coach Hernando, for talking to me this evening, for giving me the opportunity to speak to you. I might as well put it out there. Coach Hernando approached me and asked if I wanted to interview him, and I'm very grateful for this opportunity because the league has been so welcoming in me trying to do something here. I think Slamball coming back is amazing, and I think that, like every other great sport, it needs great coverage, and hopefully I can bring that to you guys. So thank you for giving me this first step through the door. No, this is awesome. I'm glad we're able to spend some time. And really, at the end of the day, Slamball is at an opportunity, at the opportune time to really, really explode. And just to be a part of it, be able to talk about the players and the people that are, I'm very lucky to be around all the time, be able to work with every day, is a huge part of it. And you're a huge part as well, too, because you, with your podcast and everything else, spreading the word of what we're doing and how amazing all our players are in the league. Well, thank you very much for those kind words. And thank you to everyone who's listening or watching this at home. Check out Coach Hernando's team, the Buzzsaw, when Slamball returns later this month on ESPN and ESPN+. That was my conversation with Coach Hernando Planells Jr. of the Buzzsaw in the 2023 Slamball League. The season tips off, or bounces off, I should say, hence the name of this podcast, on the 21st of July. The Buzzsaw are not playing that weekend, but that doesn't mean you shouldn't check out all the Slamball action coming to ESPN and ESPN Plus this year. Thank you again to Coach Planells for speaking to me. Everyone listening, have a wonderful day, and we'll see you in the next episode of Bounce Off. That'll be coming tomorrow on Monday. We'll have further previews on Wednesday and Friday.